Welcome to Designer Digital's Biweekly Tip, August 23rd, 2019. This week, how to fill chunky cuts grids in Photoshop and Elements. Katie Petit's Cutting Files Chunky Cuts Grids are part of the Cutting Files collection at Designer Digitals. But there's so much more than just images for use in your cutting machine. Each download includes a set of individual PNG images, a Photoshop brush that's an ABR, as well as the SVG format for cutting. So purchasing the set gives you the flexibility of using the grids as many times as you like over and over again in a variety of different ways. You may have seen some of these used on the digital scrapbooking pages in the Idea Gallery, and you wondered how in the world those pages are made. And this tip will walk you through the steps taken to fill the grids with pattern paper or photos. Here's how. In Photoshop or Elements, open a new document or digital project and the PNG version of a cutting file, Chunky Cuts Grids, that you'd like to use. Using the Move tool, which is the first tool in the tool bin, drag the grid onto your new document. Holding the Shift key as you drag and release will center that grid on your new document. Now I'm going to minimize the grid since we're not going to use that anymore. On your newly layered document, select the grid layer in the Layers panel by clicking on it. You'll know it's selected when it becomes highlighted in the Layers panel. Get the Magic Wand tool. It's the third tool down in Photoshop. And you can also access it by pressing W on the keyboard. In the Options bar, choose New Selection, Point Sample, and Contiguous. Next, click inside a hole in the grid that you want to fill with paper or a photo. You'll be clicking on the transparent portion inside the grid lines. This puts a selection which looks like marching ants around the inside section of the grid. Choose Select, Modify, Expand from the menu bar, and expand by about 10 pixels and then click OK. This just helps you make sure that the little box that you're creating will be completely covered by the grid and you won't have any gaps. Next, Control-click or on a Mac System Command-click the Create a New Layer icon in the Layers panel. This little icon looks like a square with a turned up corner. By Control-clicking or Command-clicking, it creates the new layer under your active layer. So you can see in the Layers panel that we still have the grid on top and our new layer is underneath it. Click the foreground color chip at the bottom of the tool bin. It's the chip that's on the left. Right now mine's set to yellow, but when I click on it, I can choose any other color. So let's get a blue here. Don't stress over the colors that you're choosing because you're eventually going to cover them up anyway. But when you're satisfied, click OK. Get the Paint Bucket tool and click inside the selection. Now under the grid layer, you'll have a grid section filled with the color that you selected from the color picker. Press Ctrl-D or on a Mac System Command-D to remove the marching ants, which is your active selection. Now click on the top layer, which is your grid layer again, and get the Magic Wand tool again. Click the next section on the grid that you want to fill. Expand the selection, select, modify, expand. I'm going to expand again by 10 pixels. And then I'm going to create a new layer by Control or Command clicking the Create a New Layer icon. And then again get a new color in the color picker down at the bottom of the tool bin. Switch to the paintbrush tool and fill this section. Deselect by pressing Ctrl or Command D to remove the marching ants. Repeat with the remaining sections of the grid until all of the grid sections are filled with color and each section is on its own layer in the Layers panel. I like to make each section a different color. It helps when you get to the step of filling each block with paper or photos, since the different colors help you easily locate each layer in the Layers panel. Each painted section will serve as a mask, which you can now fill with pattern paper or photos. Select the first section that you'd like to fill with paper or photos, and then open the first paper or photo that you want to use in the grid. Using the Move tool, drag the paper onto your layered document. Make sure that the paper is one layer above the little grid section that you want to fill. With the paper layer selected, press Alt-Control-G on the keyboard to clip the grid section to the paper. If that doesn't work for you, you can always choose Layer, Create Clipping Mask from the menu bar. The paper should fill only the section of that first grid section that you're filling. At this point, you can resize the pattern paper or photo by dragging the corner handle. Now, if you're getting a weird funhouse effect in your software, then you'll need to hold down the Shift key as you drag that handle. This will keep the paper in proportion. Open the next paper or photo that you want to use. So let me get another piece of paper here. And repeat the clipping mask process on the second filled layer that you created. So I'll choose this fill layer and drag the paper over and then create a clipping mask to fill that section. Continue until each little fill layer that you created is covered with pattern paper or photos. To change the color of the grid, select the grid itself and then open up a piece of digital paper that coordinates with the other papers that you're using. Using the Move tool, drag the paper over on top of your document and then create a clipping mask. You can also add a drop shadow style to the grid layer. Make sure that you apply it to the grid and not to the new paper that you just put on there. It can be a real time saver to save the document at this point as a layered PSD file to preserve all of these layers. Choose File, Save As from the menu bar, and then make sure that you save as file type Photoshop or TIFF to preserve the layers. The next time you want to use the grid, you can just open up this PSD document and use the clipping mask process to fill the openings with different papers or photos. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check back in 2 weeks for the next Designer Digitals tip.